Welcome to the Solar-Wilson Conversation. This is a forum where we share our views through the lens of a Nigerian, lesbian, legally married couple. I am Margaret Solar-Wilson.
And I am Moji Solar-Wilson.
Moji and I believe in and are committed to creating space for real, authentic, transparent, and inclusive conversation. We talk with each other and we talk with others. So sit back because it's time for real talk. Hello everyone, and Moji, I am really looking forward to this conversation today. We both decided that we should focus our conversation on a smaller conversation that both of us had related to coming out late in life for women. So maybe I turned over to you to give some insights into how our conversation between you and me came about.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Solar-Wilson Conversations. It's been a minute. But about 3 weeks ago, you ran across a couple, an older couple in their 70s, and they had gotten married last year. And it was so beautiful to see the dynamic. I call her Doc, who's the masculine of center, and no children. And then her wife, who I believe has children, and they met much later in life. And I thought, we had that conversation, and the story kind of sounded like ours, and we thought to have that conversation, to just talk about it.
Yes, and we actually thought we were older when we got married, but this lesbian couple trumped us. You're right, they're probably in their 70s. And it was such a beautiful wedding ceremony. Yeah. Really beautiful, really touching. And I think what got to me as I looked through their pages was that even though they may not have spoken to it, you could kind of feel their journeys, the courage that it took them. You could feel the pain they walked through. Mm-hmm. You could feel the challenges that they came across. And I think for me, what struck me most was their courage and their determination, right? To really stand up and be visible.
Yes.
And live a full life with each other.
Yes.
And that prompted us to begin a larger conversation about, I think, a phenomenon that's making me, and I don't know if it's making you uncomfortable, it's making me uncomfortable, where you have coaches who are like coaching women to come out. It's just a bit weird. I came out when I was in my 20s, so that's not later in life. Well, it's later in life to a 6-year-old, but in reality, it's not later in life. But in my journey, I've come across women who are truly struggling. They're living a heterosexual life with a heterosexual partner. Mm-hmm. But they know that they're lesbian and are really struggling with the dynamics, to come out. This is real struggle and real pain. And yet when I listen to some of these quote unquote coaches, I don't even know how that comes about. They make it seem like it's something you can just convince yourself you are when you find yourself in a tough spot in life. Oh, well, then this sounds good. I'll try out being a lesbian and see what that feels like. I don't know, that's the way I view it. And that's why we wanted to have this full conversation. But I know you came out, I think, later in life. So maybe I'm sure you have an interesting perspective.
Just like you have a problem with a lot of the coaches, because they're not really coaching lesbians. There's one that I ran across a few days ago on social media who's coaching curious people, right? Women that are curious. And one of the things that I also notice is that, and I've said this for many years, that there's a lot of people, a lot of women that are not truly gay. They're not homosexual. And I think that's where the confusion comes in. There are people that are trisexuals, which are, in my opinion, they're just trying something. There are people that are money sexuals who just fall in love with a wallet and it doesn't matter what gender is holding the wallet. Then you have people that are truly homosexuals, and those are the ones that suffer the most, because like a lot of people that I've met, and I've been doing this since 2009 on social media. I don't charge, as you know, for anything that I do. I sit there and listen to women, and I've been telling my story for many years. I came out after having 4 children, and I had been married to a man before. And one of the reasons why it's important to be transparent is because of the fact that it wasn't until I watched Ellen. I mean, to me, Ellen was like if there was a god of lesbians in those days, in the 90s, that was Ellen. Because when she came out, she lost a lot. She lost her show, she lost her friends. Everybody knows that story. And then I remember listening to her interview one day, I don't remember the show, where she said she thought she had to be with boys, so she dated men before. That's when it clicked. Because I thought if I because I dated men, which I did because I was really into church, and I was, I'm Nigerian, and I thought there was something wrong with me. My first girlfriend was at 14. So it's not like I had never dated girls before, and I know the difference. My connection, I can like a man a lot. As a matter of fact, most of my friends, best friends are men, they're not women. So I always thought, maybe, just maybe, if I just put my all into being a heterosexual, it would be okay. And it wasn't. There was several times I tried to take my own life. The third time, so I had a out-of-body experience where I thought I saw God. And, he said he had a message for me, and that was the beginning of my journey. And I'm seeing a lot of younger, I'm almost 60, I'm seeing a lot of younger people, if they're having problems with their partners, just, they're being told to try, maybe they're gay, and that's not, you're not a homosexual by choice. One of the biggest issues we have in this community is people have turned this into a trial. Let me go out there and try, and maybe. I watched, somebody sent me a video yesterday, I don't even know who it was, and the person was saying that they had to be open to love. See, there's a difference between romantic love and platonic love. Romantic, erotic love is what a homosexual has towards their same gender partner. A platonic love is a friendship. You can live with your friend, but it doesn't make you a lesbian. And that's what the confusion, I think, it is in the society these days, where people think, they can choose to be gay. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. It absolutely does. And, you say you've seen a lot of younger people who are exploring, for want of a better term.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually think that when one is younger, right, with limited experiences, there are questions that many of these younger people had. When I was younger, in my teens, I knew I wasn't straight. I didn't even have the language. I felt confused. And it was a journey to actually understand why I didn't have a romantic attraction to boys, why my romantic attraction was focused on girls. I mean, I wasn't born with that information, right? It took some amount of self-reflection, as much as I could self-reflect as a teenager, and reading to understand, and growth, right? I actually see a bigger problem with what I have encountered or experienced, right, in conversations with older women, mm-hmm. who, many of them, come at it from the standpoint of, here I am, right, they say, they got married, they had children, they have grandchildren, and now that they have fulfilled their life, mm-hmm. they want a woman to have a relationship with. I think the point that many of these older people are missing is that there is no one who is just out there waiting for you to have completed a full life with somebody else created a full family which still exists, and then is willing to offer themselves up as a retirement recreational plan for you.
Recreational.
And we actually you and I, Moji, have had several conversations with older women who think that that is appropriate.
Yeah.
Another narrative that we have heard with some older women as well is this theory that because their relationships have not worked out with men, well, let's go try women.
Yeah.
And that's usually when they begin, in our experience in these conversations, to say things like love is love, which is really a bit of a meaningless rhetoric because nobody's arguing that love is not love.
Yeah, but why wait till you're like almost over checking out before you realize that love is love?
And I think, great question, because there is another group of women out there who are truly struggling.
Yes, and those are the ones we try to reach.
Right. They are lesbian women who find themselves in heterosexual situations that are very often abusive to them, not necessarily physically, but emotionally, psychologically. They are struggling and they are trying to come out of the closet.
Yeah.
And narratives like this, I can't help but think, must be confusing to women who are experiencing real pain in the journey. Because for them, this is not a sport. This is not an option. Being a lesbian is truly who they are.
Yes. You know, the last call that I got that really, really threw me off my axle for about a week because I had really had to think. I got a call from a woman on Facebook and she said, she's had children, she's done everything society expects of her, and she's single. So can I find her a partner? And I said, this is not like a bag or a pair of shoes. You're talking about a human being that you want to be your toy. Because the questions I asked was, are you gay? She's like, well, no. So then if you're not gay, why would you want a woman? Why can't you just make friends with people that you can travel with, that you can go out and have dinner with? You can build a community as opposed to pretending to be a lesbian and harming somebody in the long run, because I know I don't want to invest my life and my emotions into another human being that's just experimenting. And I'm not saying people shouldn't try things out. That's not what I mean. When I was coming out, when you were coming out, there was no social media, there was no Google, we couldn't research anything. There's so much you can learn online. And there's so many people out there that you can follow to really ask questions and, talk to in 2024. Unlike when we were coming out, what feels like 100 years ago. The coaches are really bothering me because a lot of women that are not truly gay, their relationships, their homes are being damaged. Being gay, people think is so, I don't know if they think it's glamorous, right? And the woman that called me said, if you remember quite well, she said she did not want anybody because I said, are you going to be open about this? And she said, no. So you're looking for somebody to be in the closet as your toy, somebody that you're ashamed to be around, somebody that you can't claim in public, somebody that you would have to introduce as your friend, even though you live in America. Basically, a lot of people, it seems like a woman are looking for toys. Like a little dog to take around and put away when they don't feel like being bothered or when they have to go to family events and things like that. And that's not what, in 2024, a lesbian relationship should look like, anyways, to me. Unless, of course, maybe you live in a country where you will be thrown in jail for being gay or something like that. But I don't understand how you could live in America and still be in the closet, even though you're gay, let alone somebody that just wants to experiment with another human being's emotions and feelings.
Yes, it is a bit confusing, and I'm sure there are many people out there who will not share our perspective. although it's not as though this is a single perspective, I think our conversation here is about different groups of people.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
There is one group that is, I believe, are lesbians and truly struggling with this journey.
Yeah.
And I fully understand how a lesbian in a society that's homophobic can find themselves in heterosexual marriage with children and be terribly unhappy. You know, they're emotionally bound to their family, but at the same time, they know that they're not being true to their authentic self. And I think those women really need not to be harmed by social or cultural narratives that present lesbian relationships as a social phenomenon, which it's not, or as a choice that you can make, which it's not. And we talk about social media, but, you know, recognizing that heterosexuals and homosexuals have access to social media.
Yeah.
There's an interesting phenomenon that we see in the lesbian community as well, where a random stranger will reach out to another random stranger who's a lesbian, just like that woman did to you, and say, can you find me someone? We're not running dating groups here. There are dating apps for that. Yeah. But there is this assumption that there is a pool of lesbians who are so desperate for love
that they'll take anything.
That they'll take any situation.
Yeah.
And the whole narrative, I think, it really diminishes us.
I really believe there are lesbians like that. I mean, there's got to be lesbians like that. And if that's what they choose for themselves, shuku to them, that's great. But I don't, for instance, the last person that called me and said, oh, you know, I'm getting older. I'm a lesbian. I'm getting older. And can you just link me up with somebody? And I'm like, first of all, I don't know that many lesbians that I can just go to and say, hey, this is a random person that reached out to me on Facebook. I know nothing about you. I don't know if you're a serial killer or whatever you are. You know, I know nothing about you that you're asking me for a friend of mine. And I would not introduce you, that particular person, to anyone I know because I don't know anything about you. But there are women out there that will take anything, you know, and a lot of times people don't realize that. For me, I don't think I would have been able to build a relationship with you if I came straight out into this relationship. When I first came out, I didn't date anybody for quite a while. I was just by myself, you know, trying to understand who I am, what it is, what are my values, because everything, my core values were still the same. But once I came out, I lost friends, I lost family members in the very beginning. You know, now 2024, they're all trying to come back, or they are back, the ones I let back in. There's a price we pay for everything, right? And too many people don't want to pay the price, you know? For women like me that are in relationships, in heteronormative relationships, that are not happy within themselves because they know who they are, there's so many ways, so many things. You can go for therapy. There's so many things you can do. But there's a lot of women out there too that just want to experiment. They're bi-curious, whatever. And then you have the bisexuals, the so-called bisexuals that are not really bisexuals in this thing as well, right? We saw a video of a woman that says she was I posted it on my page the other day. A video of a woman that said, oh, you know, she's married to a man, but she can't live without the feminine energy. She's looking for somebody else. And somebody had asked her, are you looking for somebody else for a poly relationship? And she said, no, I just want that person for me. Her husband was not going to be any part of that. The dynamics of relationships has changed a lot in this woke generation. That's a God's honest truth. But for those, my focus has been the people that know that they're gay, that find themselves in heteronormative lives, and they don't know how to get out. I didn't know how to do it either. I just did. Sometimes you have to jump.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting you said there are lesbians who will accept anything, right? Mm-hmm. And I presume when you meant that there are lesbians who will accept, you know, relationship with anybody, even if it's harmful to them. I would go further to say there are people who do that, right? Yeah. Being a lesbian doesn't make you any more likely to do that. There are just people who do that for a variety of reasons. We must acknowledge, though, that for many lesbians, the reason why their self-esteem becomes impacted is really because of the, homophobic assaults that they have received in their journey, right? And so, I continue to be concerned when I see situations and I hear the rhetoric that's filtering into the lesbian community. And I think the point you made is really valid. I think what is very important, in my opinion, as I've spoken with, several women in my journey, is the concept of taking time. I mean, the heterosexual communities have taught us that rebound relationships don't work, right, or are less likely to work.
Yeah.
Even more challenging is a rebound relationship when you are rebounding to a totally different gender, right? So I think that concept of taking the time to really sit still and explore and think and seek one's true self inward is important. And when you mention therapy, I think that's where it's important for us to really, for women like that to reach out to therapists who are qualified in this space.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I think that's really important. But, as we approach, the end of this conversation, what advice would you give an older woman who is in a heterosexual relationship, with or without children, who is troubled by the fact that she may be a lesbian?
So first and foremost, nobody chooses to be a lesbian. You're either a lesbian or you're not. You can choose to live a homosexual or a heterosexual life. That's the only choice you have. But for women that are coming out of heterosexual relationships, it's very important to understand that there will be a price that you pay. There will be pain, there will be tears. There will be a lot of peeling of the onion, right? To get to understand yourself. And as we all know, most people, when they peel onions, there's a lot of tears, right? There's tears. And then if you have children, you have to understand that there's going to be that dynamic. Hopefully you have children that are very, very empathetic and that are very understanding and they're not homophobic. Because people think, because in this generation, they're not homophobic. I beg to differ. I have children that are homophobic. And society at large, you will have to deal with on a larger scale, but on a very small scale, if that makes sense. As in, you will face homophobia. There's nothing you can do about it. You have to build up that grit to be able to stand up tall in your own shoes. And that takes a lot of self-reflection. That takes a lot of building boundaries. And the more boundaries you build, the smaller your world becomes. I have lesbian friends that I know are lesbians. They're living their lesbian lives, but they're not out. So they won't show up in public with Moji. So nobody knows they're gay. They won't invite me to their parties. And then you have the ones in the closet that are not out, that are not even living they're not living a homosexual life. They're in a heteronormative relationship, right? But they have, girlfriends or side chicks and all that, and they still won't come out with me. They won't hang out. They won't call. They'll call. We have private, closeted relationships. And one of the things I did 3 years ago was I woke up one morning and I said, I'm no longer having friendships in the closet because it breaks one. So those are all things that people have to prepare for. And it's about seeing the value, your worth. Are you worthy to be loved authentically? Are you worthy to be around people that you don't have to hide yourself from? it gets exhausting because it's like having two dynamics, two personalities. You know, the heterosexual personality and then the homosexual personality. And the whole thing is just crazy because I was in the closet for quite a long time. I didn't come out until I came out on social media in 2009, but I officially came out in 2006. That was a long time in between, that was like 3 years or 4 years before I really came out to the public. So it's a journey. They have to understand it's a journey as well.
I think that's key, right? Mm-hmm. That everyone understands this is a journey, that they understand this is a journey. And for me, when I think about the advice I would give, I think first is about transparency, right? And authenticity. The first conversation, because it doesn't strike one like a bolt of lightning, right? There's often been an internal conversation the person has had with themselves for many years. And I think it's important when that voice becomes really loud, right? It's important, I think, in my mind, the first step to own who you are. And then I think the second step after one has owned who they are is really to understand that other people are involved. And I actually think that depending on who the woman's spouse or significant other is, that's the next step of the conversation. Mm-hmm. I think to be fully transparent. Of course, the messaging will be accepted in different ways. But I think, just being fully transparent with the other partner. And then I think, then the question becomes, what next? Does one stay in the relationship that they're in, knowing they're a lesbian? That can somewhat be challenging because then you are, if you're really going to remain faithful to your partner or whatever that construct is, to your family, then it can feel like you're depriving your authentic being of having a wholesome relationship, right? And I think that's the concept of, responsibility to yourself and to others and trying to get to a balance. But I do think that everyone is entitled to live their best life.
Amen, yes.
Right? To live their best life to the fullest. Right? At whatever age it dawns on them that they may have been, they or society may have shortchanged them in their journey. A friend of ours says, life is not a dress rehearsal. You're not going to get a second chance. So I think everybody's entitled to that. I think the question is how that happens.
Yes.
Right? And I do think for those who may be curious, that is a whole different phenomenon that I can't speak to because I never was in that category. But I think it's important for that group to understand that what appears to them like a social activity or a sport or fun is actually the real lives of people who are in pain, who have been traumatized. And it's cruel to engage with someone in a manner that's not authentic and that could potentially impact their core, their self-esteem, even more than they already have been subjected to.
Yeah, it's very true. Because most of our lives as homosexuals, we've been told by church that we're not enough. We've been told we're an abomination. We've been told that we're demons and all kinds of such. And when people that are supposed to love us play with us, it's a very, very sad place to be, But I think the bottom line is stage one, get to know yourself. I think that's where I'm going to leave it. Until part 2.
And just like you started with the video we watched of the couple who I think one of them is in their 70s. Congratulations to them.
Yes.
I know when they listen to this podcast, they'll know who they are.
Yes.
We are so proud of them.
Oh my God.
Because it's never, ever too late to really lean into your authentic self. And for those who do that,
it takes a lot of courage.
It does take a lot of courage.
It takes a lot of courage.
Right. And our thoughts continue to be with them throughout this journey, which we are on ourselves.
Yes.
So it's been a great conversation, Moji. And until next time, thank you to everyone who's taken the time to listen to us. We look forward to our next conversation. Moji?
Yes, thank you for listening, and we'll see you in part 2.
Thank you to everyone for listening in to the Solar-Wilson Conversation, where we share our views through the lens of a Nigerian, lesbian, legally married couple. So signing off, I am Margaret Solar-Wilson.
And I am Moji Solar-Wilson.
And as usual, we leave you with our message. Be authentic. Your voice is unique, and your words are truth. Your story is powerful. Never, ever be afraid to share your unique perspective and story with the world. Your story will touch someone. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next week.